They called my autistic son weird at a birthday party, until a stranger came over and said something. My name is Sarah, and I'm the mother of an 8-year-old boy named Lucas who has autism. What happened at that birthday party last Saturday changed not only how I see my son, but how an entire community learned to embrace differences. I never imagined that one afternoon would turn into a moment that would be talked about for months in our neighborhood. Lucas has always been different. From the moment he could walk, he would line up his toys in perfect rows, get upset if his routine changed even slightly, and had an incredible memory for details that most people wouldn't even notice. When he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at age 4, I felt a mix of relief and fear. Relief because finally we had answers, but fear because I knew the world wasn't always kind to children who were different. Before I continue with this story that completely changed my perspective on my son's condition, if you believe that our differences can be our greatest strengths, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more inspiring stories about neurodiversity and acceptance. That Saturday morning started like any other weekend. Lucas was sitting at the kitchen table, carefully arranging his cereal by color and size before eating it. This was his routine, and I had learned not to rush him. Some people might see this as obsessive behavior, but I had come to understand that these rituals gave Lucas comfort and helped him navigate a world that often felt overwhelming to his sensitive nervous system. Mom, is the party still at 3 o'clock? Lucas asked, checking his watch for the 5th time that morning. Time and schedules were incredibly important to him, and any uncertainty could cause significant anxiety. Yes, honey, exactly at 3. Just like we've talked about all week, I replied, knowing that repetition and consistency were key to helping him feel secure. The party was for Emma, a classmate from his school. Her mother, Jennifer, had been kind enough to invite Lucas, though I suspected it was more out of obligation than genuine desire. I had noticed the way some of the other parents looked at Lucas during school pickup, the whispered conversations that stopped when I approached, the way they would politely smile but keep their distance. As we prepared to leave, I went through Lucas's coping strategies with him. Remember, if the noise gets too loud, you can ask me to step outside for a few minutes. If someone is playing a game you don't understand, you can watch first before joining. And if you need space, just find me. Okay. Lucas nodded solemnly, adjusting his noise-canceling headphones around his neck. These had become his security blanket for social situations, helping him manage sensory overload when environments became too stimulating. We arrived at the party exactly on time, because being late would have caused Lucas significant distress. The backyard was decorated with colorful balloons and streamers, and there were already about 15 children running around, their voices creating a chaotic symphony that I could see was immediately overwhelming for Lucas. "It's loud, Mom," he whispered, his hands starting to flap slightly at his sides. This was one of his self-regulation behaviors, something that helped him cope with anxiety, but I knew other people often saw it as weird or abnormal. "I know, sweetie. Do you want to put your headphones on for a few minutes?" He nodded and slipped them over his ears, the tension in his shoulders immediately relaxing. We found a quieter spot near the garden where he could observe the activities without being overwhelmed by the sensory input. Within minutes, I noticed other parents glancing in our direction. I heard fragments of whispered conversations. "Why is he wearing those headphones? Look at the way he's moving his hands. Is something wrong with him?" Jennifer approached us with a forced smile. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it. Lucas, there are games over by the bounce house if you want to join." I could tell she was trying to be inclusive, but there was something in her tone that suggested she hoped Lucas would blend in and not draw attention to himself. The bounce house was exactly the kind of overstimulating environment that would be challenging for him. "Thank you, Jennifer." Lucas might observe for a while first, and then decide if he wants to participate. Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course. Well, there's plenty to do." As the party continued, I watched Lucas carefully. He had found a spot where he could see everything but wasn't in the center of the chaos. He was particularly fascinated by the way the shadows of the trees moved across the ground, and I could see him mentally calculating the patterns and angles. Then the comments started. "Why doesn't he play with the other kids?" I heard one mother ask. "He's just standing there, Staring at nothing, another replied. My daughter says he's weird at school too. He never talks to anyone. Each comment felt like a knife to my heart. These were supposed to be adults, parents who should understand that children develop differently. Yet here they were judging my son based on behaviors they didn't understand. The situation escalated when a group of children approached Lucas. Emma, the birthday girl, was leading them, and at first I thought she was trying to include him. Lucas, why are you just standing there? She asked, not unkindly, but with genuine curiosity. I'm watching the shadow patterns, he replied honestly. They change every 47 seconds as the sun moves. The children exchanged glances, and I saw some of them smirk. That's weird, one of them said. Normal kids don't count shadows. Yeah, why don't you just play like everyone else? Another added. I started to move toward them, but Lucas surprised me by responding calmly. I see things differently. The shadows make geometric patterns that repeat in cycles. It's actually quite fascinating if you observe carefully. You're so weird, Emma said, and the other children laughed. My mom says you're autistic and that's why you act strange. I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. Not only was Emma repeating something her mother had obviously discussed at home, but she was using my son's diagnosis as a way to exclude and mock him. Maybe you should go home if you can't be normal, one of the boys added, and the group began to disperse, leaving Lucas standing alone by the garden. I was about to intervene when I saw Lucas's hands begin to flap more rapidly, a sign that he was becoming distressed. He reached for his headphones and put them on, but I could see tears forming in his eyes. Just as I was walking toward him, ready to leave this party and never look back, a woman I had never seen before approached Lucas. She was elegantly dressed, probably in her 50s, and had an air of quiet authority about her. Instead of speaking loudly to get Lucas's attention over his headphones, she simply stood nearby and waited. When he noticed her, she smiled and made a gesture asking if she could speak with him. Lucas nodded and removed his headphones. I couldn't help but notice you were observing the shadow patterns, she said, her voice gentle and genuinely interested. I'm Dr. Amanda Chun, and I happen to be a professor of mathematics at the university. Could you tell me more about what you're seeing? Lucas's eyes lit up immediately. The shadows create geometric progressions that shift every 47 seconds. If you track the movement, you can calculate the exact time and predict where the shadows will be at any given moment. Dr. Chun nodded thoughtfully. That's remarkable. Most people don't notice patterns like that. You have what we call exceptional pattern recognition skills. Can you show me? For the next 10 minutes, Lucas enthusiastically explained his observations to Dr. Chun, who listened intently and asked thoughtful questions. I watched from a distance, amazed at how animated and confident my son became when someone showed genuine interest in his unique way of seeing the world. Their conversation began to draw attention from other parents and children. At first, people seemed curious about what could be so fascinating about shadows. Then I heard Dr. Chen's voice carry across the yard. Lucas, your ability to recognize and calculate these patterns is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to breakthrough discoveries in mathematics and science. Some of the world's greatest innovators have thought differently, just like you do. Jennifer appeared at my side, looking confused. Who is that woman talking to Lucas? I'm not sure, but she seems to understand him, I replied, watching as more people gathered around my son and Dr. Chun. Dr. Chun then did something that took my breath away. She addressed the growing crowd of onlookers, including the children who had been mocking Lucas earlier. I want you all to know that this young man has just demonstrated advanced mathematical thinking that many of my university students would find challenging. His autism isn't a limitation. It's a different way of processing information that allows him to see patterns and connections that others miss. The yard fell silent. Even the children stopped their playing to listen. Throughout history, many of our greatest scientists, artists, and innovators have been neurodivergent. They've thought differently, seen the world from unique perspectives, and that's exactly what has led to some of humanity's most important discoveries. Emma tugged on Dr. Chen's sleeve. But he's weird. He doesn't play games like us. Dr. Chun knelt down to Emma's level. Different doesn't mean weird, Sweetheart. It means unique. Lucas experiences the world in ways that allow him to notice things others don't. That's not something to make fun of. It's something to celebrate. One of the other children, a boy named Jake who had been particularly vocal in his mockery earlier, stepped forward. So Lucas is like, really smart? Intelligence comes in many forms, Dr. Chun explained. Lucas has a type of intelligence that allows him to see mathematical relationships in everyday situations. That's pretty amazing, don't you think? I watched as the children's expressions changed from confusion to curiosity to something that looked like respect. Even the adults seemed to be reassessing their earlier judgments. Dr. Chun turned to Lucas. Would you like to show them how you can predict where the shadows will be in exactly 5 minutes? Lucas nodded eagerly, and for the next few minutes, he became the center of attention for all the right reasons. He made his calculations, marked spots on the ground, and when the shadows aligned exactly where he predicted, everyone applauded. That's incredible, Jennifer exclaimed, and I could see genuine amazement in her eyes. I had no idea Lucas could do that. The party dynamic completely shifted. Instead of being excluded, Lucas became the most interesting person there. Children asked him questions about other patterns he noticed, and he patiently explained his observations about the way water moved in the pool, how birds flew in formation, and even how the birthday cake had been cut in mathematically inefficient pieces. Dr. Chun found me as the party was winding down. I hope you don't mind that I intervened. I have a grandson with autism, and I know how challenging social situations can be. Mind? You just gave my son something I've been trying to give him for years. Acceptance and recognition of his gifts. Lucas is remarkable, she continued. His pattern recognition abilities are extraordinary. Have you considered enrolling him in advanced mathematics programs? I shook my head. I've been so focused on helping him fit in that I haven't thought about nurturing his unique talents. Fitting in is overrated, Dr. Chun said with a smile. What matters is finding environments where his differences are valued and his gifts can flourish. As we prepared to leave, something wonderful happened. Several children approached Lucas to say goodbye, and Emma, the birthday girl, handed him a piece of cake. I'm sorry I called you weird, she said quietly. I think you're actually really cool. Can you show me more patterns at school? Lucas smiled. A genuine, happy smile that I hadn't seen in a social situation before. I'd like that. There are patterns everywhere if you know how to look for them. The drive home was filled with Lucas's excited chatter about his conversation with Dr. Chan and the other children's questions. For the first time after a social event, he wasn't exhausted or overwhelmed. He was energized and happy. Mom, Dr. Chun said being autistic means my brain works differently. Not wrong. Is that true? I pulled over and turned to look at my son. This amazing little boy who saw the world through such a unique lens. Yes, Lucas. Your brain is wired differently, and that's what makes you special. You notice things others miss, you remember details that others forget, and you can solve problems in ways that others can't. I like being different, he said thoughtfully. It means I can see patterns that help people understand things better. That evening, I received several text messages from other parents at the party. Jennifer wrote, I'm so sorry about earlier. I had no idea how gifted Lucas is. Emma can't stop talking about the shadow patterns. Another parent texted, my son has been trying to find patterns in everything since we got home. Lucas really opened our eyes today. Even Jake's mother reached out. Jake feels terrible about what he said to Lucas. He wants to apologize at school on Monday. We'd love to have Lucas over for a playdate sometime. But the most meaningful message came from Dr. Chun, who had gotten my number from Jennifer. She wrote, I've been thinking about Lucas all evening. I run a summer program for mathematically gifted children at the university. Would you be interested in having him participate? I believe he would thrive in an environment where his unique way of thinking is not just accepted but celebrated. That night, as I tucked Lucas into bed, he looked up at me with those bright, intelligent eyes that had always seen the world differently. Mom, today was the best party ever. Not because of the cake or the games, but because someone finally understood how my brain works. I kissed his forehead, tears of joy streaming down my face. Your brain is perfect exactly as it is, sweetheart. And tomorrow, we're going to start looking for more places where your gifts can shine. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Lucas joined Dr. Chen's program, where he met other children who thought differently and shared his passion for patterns and mathematics. At school, instead of being the weird kid, he became the pattern expert who could help solve problems and notice things others missed. The other children from the party began including him in their activities, not out of pity, but because they had learned to value his unique perspective. Teachers started recognizing his gifts and finding ways to challenge him academically while supporting his social development. Jennifer and I became friends, and she became an advocate for autism awareness in our community. She organized workshops for parents and children about neurodiversity, featuring Dr. Chen as a speaker. Most importantly, Lucas developed confidence in himself. He learned that being different wasn't something to hide or apologize for. It was something to celebrate and share with the world. 3 months after that birthday party, Lucas was invited to present his pattern recognition discoveries at a regional science fair. As I watched him confidently explain his findings to judges and other students, I thought about that day when children called him weird and parents whispered about his behavior. Dr. Chen had been right. Fitting in is overrated. What matters is finding your tribe, the people who see your differences as strengths and encourage you to be authentically yourself. Today, Lucas is thriving in ways I never imagined possible. He's still autistic, he still needs his routines and his noise-canceling headphones, and he still sees the world through a unique lens. But now, instead of seeing these traits as limitations, our community sees them as gifts. The real transformation wasn't in Lucas, he was always amazing. The transformation was in how others learned to see him, and in how I learned to advocate for his gifts rather than apologize for his differences. That birthday party taught me that sometimes it takes just one person who understands, one voice that speaks up, one moment of recognition to change everything. Dr. Chen didn't just defend my son that day. She helped an entire community understand that neurodiversity isn't something to be tolerated, but something to be celebrated. Every child deserves to have their unique gifts recognized and valued. Every parent deserves to feel proud of their child's differences rather than ashamed of them. And every community benefits when we learn to see diversity not as a problem to be solved, but as a strength to be embraced. Lucas still counts shadows, still lines up his toys, and still needs extra time to process social situations. But now, instead of being seen as the weird kid, he's recognized as the brilliant young mathematician who sees patterns that others miss. And that has made all the difference in his world and in mine.